The video about Phil Wickham's sad life. Phil Wickham, a famous Christian singer and songwriter, was facing a scary challenge that would have a big effect on his work, his personal life, and his sense of who he was. Phil had surgery on his vocal cords because he was having a lot of trouble singing. It was necessary for him to have surgery because his vocal cords were hurt, but it made him very afraid that he would lose his voice forever. As a musician whose job is to sing and lead praise, this possibility seemed like it would be impossible to get past. The surgery, the time it took to heal, and the emotional upheaval he went through give us a new understanding of the deeply personal and open trip of an artist who is worried about losing their voice, which is their most important tool. With songs like this as Amazing Grace, Living Hope, and Great Things, Phil Wickham has made a name for himself as a powerful praise leader. Because of the way he sings, he is one of the most popular Christian singers of today. For someone like Phil, whose life is tied to music and service, the thought of never being able to sing again was terrible. His voice wasn't just his job, it showed how much he loved his work and his faith. He was very anxious because he knew that losing it would mean losing a part of who he was. Phil decided to have surgery on his vocal cords after he started having major problems with his voice. It became clear to him that he was losing his vocal range and having trouble staying awake during shows. He could no longer sing as high as he used to because of the ongoing stress. The doctor said that his voice cords were damaged, and surgery seemed to be the only way to fix the problem. But there was a big risk with the treatment. There was no promise that his voice would fit back together or that he would be able to sing again at all. Phil's fear of losing his voice for good was more than just a problem at work. "I was having a personal problem. He had trained his voice to be a gift that he used to encourage people all over the world. It broke his heart to think that he would no longer be able to lead prayer and sing songs that were so important to his faith. He was very upset about the thought that he might never be able to sing a prayer song from the heart in front of a crowd again. Of course, the surgery itself was hard and unclear. Phil couldn't talk or sing for a while, which gave him lots of time to think about what his voice really meant to him. The silence turned into a time of mental and physical pain for the person. It was time for him to accept that his career, which he had worked so hard to build, might be over. His family, friends, and faith group were very important to him during this time. Their words of support helped him remember that even though his voice was a gift, it wasn't the only way he could connect with people and God. There was still a big fear that he would never sing again. The healing process took a long time and was very hard. Phil had to be quiet for a long time while his voice cords healed. He went to vocal treatment and worked hard to get his strength and control back. Some days it felt like things were moving too slowly, and the fear of doing lasting damage was too much to handle. He felt like he was making progress with his recovery, every little thing. But every mistake or setback made him realize how fragile his voice and job were. But Phil learned something important from this painful process. His worth was not just based on his voice. Even though his singing talent was a big part of who he was, he saw that he could still make a difference in the world even without his voice. His faith was a big part of his healing. It gave him the strength to deal with each problem and the perspective to see past his fear of losing his voice. Thankfully, Phil's voice started to come back after a time of mending and getting better. He didn't get back to normal right away, but over time he got stronger and more confident in his singing. He still leads worship and makes songs, but the experience of having surgery on his voice has changed the way he sees things forever, about his job and his life. He learned that his voice is a gift, but it's not the only thing that makes him who he is. No matter what happened with the surgery, his love for ministry, his strong faith, and the support of those around him helped him find his mission again. Phil Wickham's surgery on his vocal cords and his fear of losing his voice forever were not just hard times for him. It taught me how to be strong, have faith, and how important perception is. It taught him to trust something more important than his singing skills. Reading about Phil's journey gives hope to anyone who has ever been afraid of losing a job, a sense of self, or a gift. It's a reminder that there is always room for growth, hope, and eventually restoration, even when problems seem impossible to solve. Phil Wickham's voice was more than just an instrument when he played music and led prayer. It was the very core of his work. Millions of people around the world were moved by his beautiful singing and praise songs. Faith and hope-filled songs like this as Amazing Grace, Living Hope, and Great Things had become well known. For that reason, the thought of losing his voice, especially since it seemed like it wasn't working right, was very scary. It wasn't just a risk for work, it was also a loss of character for me. Without his voice, could he still do the work he loved? Would he never be able to connect with God or his viewers the same way? The surgery had to be done because his voice cords were damaged, and it came with a big risk. He might never be able to sing at the same level again, but that wasn't certain. For a singer, this was a scary potential, and the healing process was full of silence and rest. Phil had to face his fear head-on. It must have been terrifying to be unable to speak or sing for a long time, especially for someone who had always used their voice to describe themselves. Phil's story is interesting not only because of the medical problem he had, but also because of the mental and spiritual battles he had to go through. He had to face the fact that he might lose a skill that was a big part of who he was. He also learned to lean on his faith, finding strength in God, even when he wasn't sure how to speak. His family, friends, and faith community helped him deal with his deep fear of lasting damage and the uncertainty of his future as a worship leader. In a lot of ways, Phil's surgery and healing were humbling experiences that helped him remember his purpose, faith, and identity in Christ. It's important to remember Phil's story, and of how easily our identities can be broken if they are too closely linked to our skills and gifts. His journey shows that what we think about ourselves defines us, even when we're afraid of losing. There's still room to grow, heal, and get stronger again. Though it hurt, the experience made him stronger, not just in his voice but in his heart as well. In the end, Phil Wickham's recovery showed how important it is to keep going, have hope, and get help from others. His singing did come back, but it took a long time and a lot of work. He still leads worship and inspires people with his music. Phil's religion, his family, and the love he shares with those around him are much more important to him than his voice. This experience may have given him the most valuable gift of all, a deeper understanding of his own worth and identity. Anyone who has been through a similar situation can learn a lot from Phil's struggles with surgery on his vocal cords and his fear of losing his voice. It tells us that we can find hope, faith, and strength even when things look like they are too hard to handle. And most importantly, it tells us that who we are and our relationships with God and the people we love are what make us who we are. Thanks for watching. Thank you so much for your help. Don't forget to like and comment on this video if you liked it. Please let me know what you think. We'll see you next time.